Imagine you are the only bloody person left on Earth. Everyone else who had enough money escaped to other galaxies and hoped to find other habitable planets long time ago, and the poor sods who couldn't afford a ticket are now pushing up daisies. It all kicked off when the Earth's temperature shot up like a rocket, making every single drop of water vanish into thin air. The place turned into a second-rate Mars, a right bloody wasteland. But our lad wasn't your run-of-the-mill bloke. With a spiffing breathing technique, he managed to stick around for thousands of bleeding years, catching some kip along the way. Now, let's dive into how this jaw-dropping tale begins. 2,000 years into the future, when Earth had transformed into a bizarre planet resembling Mars, with a name long forgotten by most, a group of bounty hunters led by a fierce woman arrived to explore their forgotten origins. The leader, a confident woman often described as strikingly beautiful, questioned her team member about their precise coordinates, puzzled by the stark differences from what she had learned about the planet. The petite yet skilled technician among them assured her that they had indeed arrived at the correct destination, despite the planet's unrecognizable appearance. Their spacecraft, more akin to a rugged truck than a sleek vessel, carried them through the desolate landscape. One of their companions, a man viewed as unattractive and seemingly unimportant, pondered aloud whether this desolate land was the same Earth that humanity once called home. The ship's computer confirmed their fears. Not a trace of breathable oxygen remained, the atmosphere saturated with dangerous levels of radiation. The captain, disappointed by this grim revelation, questioned the feasibility of their mission. Their objective? To apprehend a notorious criminal rumored to be hiding on this inhospitable planet. The doubtful crew faced a daunting challenge as doubts crept in. Robert boldly asserted his confidence in the intelligence that led them here. Despite the harsh conditions and the lack of familiar signs of life, he remained steadfast in his belief that their target was indeed present on this barren world. However, the girl harbored doubts, cautioning the man that if his information proved to be inaccurate, he would face dire consequences. Seeking reassurance, Robert turned to another member of the team for support. This individual, named Sunja, maintained a stoic demeanor and coldly remarked, "Anyone who ventures here likely seeks their own demise." With Earth's grim state in mind, she shared the commander's belief that this desolate world was an ideal setting for a peaceful end. A troubling thought arose in the commander's mind, prompting her to inquire of Sunja, what would it take for a human to survive in this harsh environment? Is it even possible? To their surprise, Sunja revealed that with a cutting-edge radiation shield and a high-capacity internal energy source capable of sustained operation, survival for up to 6 hours was theoretically achievable under optimal conditions. This revelation led the captain to echo her initial query to Robert, probing if he was prepared to stake his life on the accuracy of his intel. Caught off guard by the weight of his responsibility, Robert hesitated, realizing the gravity of the situation should his lead prove fruitless. Yet a glimmer of hope emerged when Sunja detected signs of human life beneath the planet's surface, providing just enough assurance for the team to take the risk and place their trust in Robert's guidance. As they journeyed closer to Earth's barren surface, they beheld a landscape devoid of life, reduced to nothing but remnants of a once thriving civilization buried beneath layers of dust and sand, resembling an expansive desert frozen in time. The location they sought was Mount Hua, marked by a massive gate that stood as a relic from ancient times. The young woman hesitated, unsure if this was the legendary Mount Hua of her ancestors' tales. Sunja, however, confirmed that this was indeed the historic site revered as a sanctuary by the elders of the Martial Alliance. Despite Sunja's affirmation, the captain viewed the area as nothing more than a neglected wasteland, a far cry from the revered sanctuary she had envisioned. Moments later, Sunja signaled to the captain that they had arrived at the exact coordinates. Perplexed by the barren surroundings, the captain questioned Sunja's judgment, finding it hard to believe that they had reached their destination with nothing in sight. Nevertheless, the determined girl reminded them of their mission to explore beneath the surface, not just the barren ground before them. As the captain pondered the next steps, she knelt down and touched the ground, contemplating how to access the depths below. Robert, the unassuming member of the group, shared her curiosity, wondering about the captain's strategy for navigating this predicament. With unwavering focus, the captain devised a plan to penetrate the ground and venture beneath the surface. Activating the internal energy drive, a vibrant green aura enveloped her as she contemplated the dangers of a burial deep underground, acknowledging that without her newfound abilities, survival would have been improbable. Despite the risks, the captain remained steadfast and resolute. Channeling her extraordinary powers, she commanded the earth to yield, unleashing a surge of energy that caused the ground to tremble and soil to erupt, revealing the hidden depths below in a matter of seconds. Robert found himself inadvertently buried under the cascading sands, prompting him to request a warning for future disturbances from the captain. Unfazed by his predicament, the captain stood transfixed by the unexpected sight unfolding before her. Neither she nor Robert had anticipated the sudden appearance of a hole of such magnitude in that desolate location. Seeking guidance, the captain turned to Sunja once more, inquiring about any signs of life in their vicinity. Sunja confirmed they were on the correct path, detecting a faint signal that hinted at life, albeit distant. She surmised that the gaping hole led to an expansive and unfamiliar domain. Attempting to display concern for the captain's safety, Robert suggested retrieving an electronic ladder. However, before he could finish his sentence, the impulsive captain leaped headfirst into the opening, disregarding his advice. Disappointed by her reckless behavior, Robert urged her to wait for him to join her, but his words fell on deaf ears as she pressed on without him. Reluctantly, Robert followed her, unwilling to be left behind. After a brief journey through the depths of the mysterious passage, they arrived at a massive gate adorned with a cryptic inscription: "The world fears me and has imprisoned me with the great dharma of esoteric techniques. If you clumsily try to awaken me, death will greet you first." Perplexed by the enigmatic message, neither Robert nor the captain could decipher its meaning. Turning to Sunja for assistance, the captain implored her to translate the ancient script. Sunja revealed that it belonged to a language from 2 millennia past, summarizing its warning succinctly: "Do not open the door if you wish to avoid death." Robert believed the cryptic message validated his theories about the wanted criminal who had sought refuge there. He naively rejoiced at the prospect of his life being spared, but the captain, casting a sidelong glance at him, questioned the logic behind a criminal leaving a menacing message in an ancient language no one could comprehend. Despite her skepticism, Robert clung to the hope of discovering something valuable within the chamber, a glimmer of optimism in his eyes. The ominous warning engraved on the door also led the captain to speculate that someone might be concealing themselves inside, someone who deemed their endeavors worthy of protection. Stepping forward boldly, she disregarded any hesitation and pushed open the gate. Yet, as the gate creaked open, they were met with a startling sight. Before them stood a figure, motionless and enigmatic. It appeared to be a statue of a hairy man, with only his legs visible beneath the curtain of long hair. To Robert and the girl, the figure resembled a human, albeit one far from ordinary. Approaching cautiously, the girl closed the distance, studying the peculiar being before her. She observed with intrigue how the hairy man's entire body, except for his legs and nose, was shrouded in a cascade of hair that comprised his beard, mustache, and head. Meanwhile, Robert's curiosity piqued, but he hesitated to ascend the stairs alongside the girl. He sought confirmation from the captain, questioning whether the figure before them was truly human or merely a statue, convinced that no life could endure on this planet for over 2 millennia. An ill-conceived notion crossed the girl's mind as she contemplated verifying the being's humanity and vitality. With cautious deliberation, she extended her hand and tentatively touched the man's nose. Initially, nothing stirred, but soon a peculiar phenomenon seized the girl's attention. Strange lights began to emanate from the point where her hand made contact with the man's nose. Startled, she watched as the luminescence spread rapidly across the man's form, his fiery eyes signaling the awakening of a dormant force within him. In that moment, the captain experienced a mysterious compulsion, a force compelling her hand to recoil uncontrollably, overpowering her attempts to resist. In a heartbeat, the girl realized the imminent danger as the man's body radiated a different, more intense light, akin to a radiant star. Suddenly, with a deafening boom, a beam of energy akin to a powerful laser erupted from the being, obliterating the surface above with unstoppable force. The sheer power of the light beam transcended the confines of the surface, penetrating the very depths of the sky within seconds, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Sunja observed the unfolding chaos from within the confines of the spaceship, miraculously situated a mere few meters away from the epicenter of the cataclysmic event. Utterly bewildered by the blinding light that erupted, she stood in stunned silence momentarily, grappling with the sheer magnitude of the spectacle before her. However, as the initial shock subsided, a wave of concern washed over her, prompting her to fear for the safety of her comrades. Frantically calling out their names in a desperate bid to elicit a response, Sunja's voice echoed within the dust-filled aftermath. Seryung, are you all right? Why won't you answer me? Yet, her calls fell upon deafening silence, met with no reply from either Seryung or Robert. Amidst the swirling debris, a sliver of relief washed over Sunja as she discerned that Captain Seryung had survived the explosion, albeit gravely injured and coughing up blood, her mind reeling from the shock of the ordeal. Tragically, Robert lay lifeless on the ground before his captain, his fate uncertain, teetering between life and death. In that harrowing moment of despair, just when Seryung believed the situation could not deteriorate any further, the enigmatic hairy figure materialized before her, standing in eerie silence. With a commanding presence, he demanded answers. Who are you, and by what audacity do you disturb my slumber? Captain Seryung, rendered speechless and paralyzed by shock and fear, could only meet the creature's gaze with a mixture of disbelief and dread. The hairy man, now revealed as our protagonist, persisted in his interrogation, questioning the girl's intentions and daring her to challenge him, convinced that no mere mortal, regardless of their martial prowess, could stand against him. Rendered speechless by his imposing presence, the girl's silence only fueled his demand for answers, pressing her for the reason behind her disruptive awakening of his long slumber. Captain Seryung, mystified by the ancient language spoken by the man, which had faded into obscurity over 2 millennia, found herself at a loss for words. Realizing the urgency of the situation, she hastily activated her real-time translation mode, albeit a moment too late. The man's sudden aggression, fueled by her initial silence and perceived defiance, caught her off guard, his intentions turning menacing as he raised his hand in a threatening gesture. Faced with imminent danger, Captain Seryung made a split-second decision to launch a preemptive attack, driven by the instinct to protect herself against the unknown entity before her. Despite channeling her full power and employing her unique combat skills in a desperate bid to subdue the formidable foe, her efforts proved futile. The taxing battle left her drained of energy, her strength depleted, while the hairy man stood unscathed, a formidable adversary whose resilience surpassed her expectations. Seryung, in her tired state, couldn't help but think how her best techniques didn't even scratch the man. On the other hand, the hairy protagonist immediately recognized the girl's technique, thinking that the girl had learned it from theft. For that reason, he wanted to punish the girl, both for awakening him and for being a thief. His eyes turned red once more, and his body began to emit a purple aura as he started to float in the middle of the air. The girl's expression changed from exhausted to horrified, knowing that nothing good would come of this. The man, now at a greater height with a bigger aura, was determined to punish the girl for being a thief and also for awakening him. The girl was stunned. She couldn't move a finger and was just standing still. However, something more strange happened that left the girl in awe. Before doing anything, that monster collapsed and fell to the ground like a falling angel, though a little uglier. She was still in shock, not knowing if she needed to move now or wait. Then the sound of Robert caught her attention, saying, "He's probably dead." It seems the ugly guy had regained consciousness due to Captain's battle and, unfortunately, was not yet dead. In Robert's opinion, that man should have been dead, exposed to such radiation without a shielding field and with such a low amount of oxygen. It had been longer than normal, but he was dead now. However, Sunja shattered their hopes by saying that the guy was still alive and that his breathing and pulse were both normal. She declared that maybe he had collapsed due to a lack of energy. Both the ugly guy and the pretty captain didn't expect to hear, according to Sunja, that the man's body was completely healthy. In that moment, they realized this man had only fainted because of hunger, as he had been starving for a long time. Several hours passed and they returned to the truck spaceship. However, they brought the protagonist with them, and Robert wasn't happy about it. He warned the captain about what would happen if he went berserk again. Robert thought that every living being has value, even a cockroach, but in his eyes, this man was worth nothing at all. Captain Se-ryung had a completely different opinion. She was sure this man was worth more than they could even imagine, and that wasn't something her subordinates expected to hear at that moment. The captain began to explain why she thinks that the ancient guy is valuable. For better understanding, she started with a simple question: what's the most valuable cultural heritage today? The answer was also simple. Sunja declared, ancient martial arts. The closer to the original, the more expensive it is. Se-ryung continued, judging by circumstances, that the fuzzball man was also an ancient martial artist from 2,000 years ago. The point is, according to legends, 2,000 years ago was a golden age of martial arts, and even the lowest class F-grade technique would be worth more than 10,000 credits. However, she was certain that the fuzzball guy wasn't that low level. In her opinion, he was an S-class grandmaster. For a moment, Robert thought that if the captain was right, they'd hit the jackpot and could get a lot of money to buy a personal planet for themselves. However, he was a little worried about what would happen when the hairy man woke up and regained consciousness. Se-ryung was also nervous about it, but she believed that the celestial silkworm thread for spaceship repair could easily hold the guy if he went berserk again. Meanwhile, the sound of something ripping apart nearby distracted her. The captain's hopes shattered into pieces just 1 second, after assuring her underlings when the hairy man ripped apart those threads like a piece of cake. And now, he was standing and staring at them. Upon realizing the situation, the ancient guy became enraged once more, ready to finally carry out his mission to punish the girl he couldn't reach back then. On the other side, Se-ryung and Robert retreated to a corner, feeling helpless and desperate to defend themselves. In the midst of those terrifying moments, something astonishing occurred. Sunja fearlessly stepped forward in front of the hairy guy, presenting a full platter of roasted sausages that she had prepared for this exact moment. What transpired next shocked both the captain and the unkempt man even further. Sunja's plan succeeded as the ancient guy began happily devouring the sausages, completely ignoring the others and sitting alone at the dining table, forgetting his initial intentions. As they observed him closely from behind, the captain marveled at how Sunja had anticipated and prepared such a substantial amount of food for the man. In response, Sunja explained that it wasn't difficult. Since the man had been starving for a long time, a full dish of roasted sausages was the best offering. This simple solution came as a surprise to Se-ryung and Robert. Shortly after their spaceship aimlessly circled around and the fuzzball guy had finished all the food, they seized the opportunity to explain everything to him. They clarified that they were bounty hunters, not grave robbers, and that they had unintentionally awakened him, not intentionally. They informed him that it was now 2,000 years later since humans had departed Earth to reside in the skies and on other planets. The captain also mentioned that since then, everything had stabilized, and humans had decided to prohibit all weapons except for martial arts, including nuclear weapons. The man now seemed more reasonable, pondering whether humans could truly overlook nuclear weapons. Just then, a question crossed his mind, inquiring about the current era's name. The captain wasn't entirely certain what he meant by era, but stated that it was the year 1105 of the galactic calendar. Upon hearing this, the man posed another query: do you also reside in the sky? They were all relieved to see that the man was beginning to grasp the situation. Robert suggested that the fuzzball guy should show gratitude after being awakened after 2,000 years and fed. However, this remark only infuriated the hairy man. He pounded on the table several times, shouting once more, convinced that they were deceiving him. In that moment, they all simultaneously gestured towards the same direction. It was the moment the man decided to take one last look at what they wanted to show him. There, he was momentarily stunned as he beheld the breathtaking sight of the new Earth planet suspended in the sky. Se-ryung realized that the man wouldn't recognize this planet, so she explained that it was the planet where all humans once lived, now transformed into a desolate wasteland. However, the protagonist found it all unbelievable, nothing making sense to him in that moment. Approaching the window to observe everything in closer detail, He marveled at how his once beautiful home and planet had been destroyed. The girl joined him, attempting to comfort him by petting him gently, trying her best to console him after the harsh realization. Yet, this man proved to be challenging to handle. This time, he refused to believe what he was witnessing with his own eyes. It was at that moment that the captain felt truly disheartened to witness the protagonist's astonishingly ignorant side. "There," Robert interjected, mentioning that a bothersome smell had started to affect him. Captain Seryung quickly realized that Robert was correct, as a repugnant and intolerable odor had recently permeated the air. As expected, it emanated from the ancient guy who hadn't bathed in hundreds of years, resembling a magnet for unsavory creatures and refusing to leave him be. Captain Seryung suggested that it would be best to allow the man to take a shower before continuing their discussion. After some time, the fuzzball guy headed to the bath, and they all waited for him to complete his shower. They respected his privacy and refrained from disturbing him, while the captain advised the man to attend to his long hair and beard. Robert found this unnecessary and questioned why the captain didn't allow him to maintain his appearance as he desired. Meanwhile, the man, unaware of their conversation about him, began to trim his hair. The reason for discouraging the man from altering his haircut was rooted in their fear of encountering something mummified emerging from the bath. A moment later, their eyes widened as something truly stunning emerged from the bath. Instead of a mummified or frightening figure, a handsome young man with a charming face stepped out, a sight they never could have imagined. They stood there, utterly dumbfounded, and the first thing the transformed man asked was, "Is there more of what we ate earlier?" The captain was so taken aback that she didn't even hear the boy's question, pondering whether this could truly be the same repulsive individual who had entered the bath just a few minutes ago. Before long, they departed from their homeland, embarking on their journey through the galaxy at lightning speed. The boy gazed in awe at the outside scenery, marveling at the stars and planets from this new vantage point, which differed greatly from the descriptions in the books he had read. Something then caught his attention. Captain Seryung was playfully pinching the boy's cheek. It appeared that she had taken an interest in him after his transformation and was now curious about his true age. Both Robert and Sunja observed this scene, unable to believe the boy's remarkable change and the captain's unexpected behavior. Finally arriving at their first destination, the Pleiades, a cluster of stars in the Milky Way where the asteroid space tower was situated, a secure location for the Wild Crane Inn. In the initial moments of their entrance, Sunja was shocked to witness the boy with his new appearance devouring food like a dinosaur, effortlessly stuffing 10 sausages into his mouth at once. This display wasn't a first for him. Yet even Robert couldn't believe his eyes at the sight of a living being consuming food in such an extraordinary manner. There, Sunja remarked that this man had been famished for 2,000 years, explaining his insatiable appetite as an attempt to compensate for the past. It was at that moment that Robert realized the boy's voracious eating habits would deplete their resources if left unchecked, causing him to panic. However, they found themselves unable to address the situation effectively. Meanwhile, Captain Seryung was absent, having ventured elsewhere to meet with an important individual, a wealthy-looking man known as the keeper of the Wild Crane Inn. The captain had traveled to this location seeking a broker, specifically one who was affluent and formidable, claiming to possess something exceedingly precious and valuable. Yet, the keeper didn't take her assertions seriously, viewing her merely as the leader of a mid-tier group of bounty hunters. For reasons unbeknownst to them, the captain asserted that she possessed a complete collection of 2,000-year-old martial arts manuscripts, all original and ranked above S rank, without mentioning a word about the boy. This revelation came as a shock to the unattractive man, his eyes widening in disbelief. Without divulging any further details, the captain promptly exited the room, leaving the man seated in contemplation. Subsequently, the man's guard sought permission to take action, believing that if such manuscripts indeed existed, they would hold immense value. However, the keeper dismissed the notion, refusing to believe a single word uttered by the captain regarding the purported items. The guard couldn't comprehend why his master doubted the girl's claims. The elderly man then elucidated that a single original book from 2,000 years ago would be valued more than an entire planet in the current era, and the girl had asserted she possessed a multitude of such books. The notion that a mid-tier group of bounty hunters could acquire such treasures seemed implausible and unacceptable to the keeper. Upon Captain Seryung's return to the group for a meal following her business dealings, Sunja had already departed to procure supplies. Robert, curious about the outcome of their search for a broker, inquired about the details. Though the keeper evaded a direct response, the captain was elated at the prospect of being contacted once a suitable broker was secured for their valuable items. However, her attention was soon drawn to an unexpected sight, a multitude of empty food dishes in front of the boy, who had managed to consume them all single-handedly. This feat was astonishing to Robert, though he found some relief in the protagonist finally ceasing his eating spree after an hour. The captain, displeased by the unexpected expense and their financial constraints, now faced the burden of settling the bill, while she herself had refrained from indulging in any food. Suddenly, the inn's entrance swung open, capturing everyone's focus. A group of 6 individuals, clad in identical attire, strode into the establishment. Captain Seryung promptly identified them. Their appearance and garments marked them as members of the Heavenly Demon sect. In the first minute of entering, the man in front of the gang with his special glasses started scanning everyone in the room. It seemed like he was looking for anything suspicious. Someone was hiding and watching those newcomers. Of course, it was Captain Seryung and Robert. They immediately recognized those guys, hid behind their seats, and observed the gang. They knew they were part of the infamous Red Wolf platoons, a demon sect specialized in tracking, which made the captain and Robert cautious. The boy overheard their conversation. As soon as they mentioned the demon sect, he suddenly asked, "Demon sect? Do you possibly refer to the Heavenly Demon sect?" At first, the captain listened to his question, but then she was a little surprised to realize that the Heavenly Demon sect had existed for over 2,000 years until now. The boy stood up from his seat in shock, questioning if they were really part of the Heavenly Demon sect. He wondered why people didn't panic and escape in horror. The captain seemed a little irritated with the boy because he had eaten all the food without leaving anything for her. She mentioned that the Heavenly Demon sect had its own quirks and prided themselves as the foremost orthodox sect in the universe. Therefore, why would they attack people for no reason? The ancient boy was dumbfounded upon hearing that the Heavenly Demon sect was an orthodox sect. He felt amazed to see his first dream, which had always felt distant and empty, now coming true. Returning to the imposing figure, the leader of the Red Wolf platoons, he continued to scan the room incessantly, and soon his sharp eyes landed on a suspicious target. A gaunt man, resembling a drug addict, sat innocuously in a corner. Approaching him with an authoritative tone, the leader commanded the man to look up. As the man complied, the Red Wolf leader scrutinized him, discovering that he was wanted for robbery. Fortunately for the man, the leader was seeking someone else. Without resorting to violence, but with a firm voice and a menacing expression, he instructed the man to surrender himself to the Martial Alliance before facing consequences. In that moment, something interrupted the leader's intimidation of the man. An unexpected presence emerged and began to gently pat the man's head, leaving him bewildered. To everyone's surprise, it was none other than our protagonist, showing admiration for the Red Wolf leader's accomplishments. The onlookers, anticipating trouble for the boy, remained frozen in their seats. However, the boy's emotional display didn't end there. He embraced the giant man's head like a child, offering comfort for the hardships endured in pursuit of his lofty dreams. This tender moment even astonished the nearby addict. Despite the leader of the Red Wolf attempting to maintain composure, perceiving the boy as possibly intellectually challenged, Robert bravely approached them. He reassured the group by suggesting that the boy lacked social skills rather than being mentally impaired. The giant man believed Robert's words to some extent and attempted to free his head from the child's grasp, declaring that he would let the boy go since he detected no martial arts energy within the boy's body. A peculiar sensation washed over the Red Wolf leader as, despite his efforts, he found himself unable to move the boy even slightly. Robert and Captain Seryung refrained from interfering and simply observed the unfolding event. On the other side, the giant man could no longer tolerate being restrained in such a manner. Therefore, he activated his internal drive energy system at maximum capacity. Initially, his eyes brimmed with energy, glowing white before he let out a deafening roar, unleashing his energy while demanding an end to the charade. His efforts proved successful as he freed himself and, to everyone's shock, created a tumultuous explosion around him, akin to a raging tornado. This spectacle not only drew the attention of the bystanders, but also his allies who awaited him at the entrance door. Shortly after the chaos subsided, he discovered the boy unscathed, standing before him alongside two other individuals, observing his every move. Meanwhile, Se-ryung and Robert, who had been horrified moments earlier to find the Red Wolf platoons present, now stood near the boy, exchanging jokes about the wolf's leader. The giant found himself utterly perplexed, contemplating how, despite his initial intentions to eliminate the boy instantly, the boy remained safe and unharmed. The man began to scrutinize the boy, attempting to discern the nature of this seemingly monstrous individual, only to realize that the boy was untraceable in any database. On the other hand, the protagonist swiftly recognized the man's martial arts technique, deeming it as rudimentary, yet worthy of being passed down through generations. However, in the boy's discerning gaze, he detected a lack of harmony between the man's internal energy and chi. Thus, the boy boldly approached, expressing his desire to personally rectify the man's flawed training. Unsurprisingly, the giant man had no intention of allowing the boy any closer. In a split second, he leaped into the air, poised to vanquish the boy once and for all. Employing a unique method that transformed his hand into a fiery giant wolf's paw, he unleashed the first form of the Red Wolf demon sect upon the protagonist. However, with a mere subtle movement of his head, the boy effortlessly dodged the strike, which instead left a menacing mark on the wall behind him. Undeterred, the giant man persisted in his relentless assault, launching consecutive attacks at the ancient boy, who skillfully evaded each one as though they posed no significant threat. With every nimble dodge, the man's fury escalated until he leaped into the air, readying his ultimate move. Unaware of the true nature of his adversary, he prepared to unleash his most powerful technique. At the crucial moment, just as he was on the brink of executing his ultimate strike, a hand materialized out of thin air, delivering a swift and potent blow that not only sent the man crashing to the ground, but also created a new cavity within the inn structure. The impact was so formidable that it resembled the force of a meteorite striking the earth. This unforeseen twist not only left the Red Wolf platoons in a state of astonishment, but also captivated the onlookers who had been following the spectacle from its inception, including Robert and Se-ryung. However, the boy's actions were not driven solely by a desire to retaliate against the man. His frustration stemmed from the man's misuse of the technique and disregard for the boy's pleas to provide proper guidance. Unaware of the extent of the damage he had inflicted, the protagonist urged the man to rise and attempt once more. Meanwhile, the remaining members of the Red Wolf platoons found themselves torn between advancing towards the boy to avenge their leader's defeat or to safeguard their captain's life. Despite their collective approach, the boy stood unwavering in his position, unfazed even when confronted by 5 assailants simultaneously. As time elapsed, in a distant sector of the galaxy where the District 32 of the current Heavenly Demon Sect resided, an elderly man surveyed the aftermath of the skirmish. His subordinates lay battered and unconscious on the floor of the inn, prompting him to dispatch a rescue team to aid the fallen and uncover the truth behind the chaos. Observing the unfolding events from a distance, the man identified as Jong Ri-tak, the esteemed commander of District 32, grappled with disbelief over the plight of the Red Wolf platoons under his command. Just then, one of his subordinates arrived, delivering a report. Despite sustaining injuries, all members of the Red Wolf platoons had survived the altercation. The district commander, however, did not perceive the situation as fortunate, finding it disconcerting that a group of skilled operatives under his command had been bested by a mere enigmatic stranger. Senior Elder, an underling in District 32, shared his sentiments, noting that, while the unknown individual was unregistered in the martial arts database, his companions were duly documented. The Elder elucidated that they belonged to a faction of bounty hunters known as the S-Devil, specializing in apprehending B-class or lower-tier criminals under the leadership of a formidable figure named Se-ryung, renowned as the Blazing Devil. Meanwhile, as they were talking about him, the protagonist was sitting in his favored spot, eagerly anticipating his next meal, his insatiable hunger driving his every thought. Captain Sir-Young and Robert were observing him intently on other side, strategizing on how to manage the voracious appetite of the monster. In District 32, the senior elder proposed that the recent events provided an opportunity to track the intruder's spaceship, advocating for the deployment of a surveillance team to monitor their movements closely. However, the commander rebuffed the suggestion, adamant on personally resolving the unfolding crisis. The elder, respecting the commander's decision, bowed respectfully before exiting the chamber. Alone once more, the commander pressed a green button, initiating communication with a potential ally capable of undertaking a critical mission. After a brief pause, a rugged individual materialized on the large monitor, extending a cordial greeting to the district commander. However, the newcomer, perceptive as he was, discerned an underlying motive behind the unexpected contact, noting the commander's subtle demeanor shift. A formidable figure in his own right, the man on the monitor awaited the commander's persuasive tactics to compel his involvement in the impending mission. Time passed, and the group of bounty hunters, along with their new member, moved towards the next destination. Surprisingly, the protagonist found himself hungry once again, eagerly awaiting his favorite meal. Meanwhile, the captain and Robert stood a little further away, observing him and pondering why he was hungry yet again. This time, the boy had prepared everything meticulously for a delightful meal. He wore an apron, placed a red napkin, and even adorned his dining table with flowers. Robert couldn't shake off a sense of unease this time and asked if the girl shared his apprehension. However, his question only prompted the girl to counter with her own question. Why should I be afraid? Robert attempted to remind Captain Sir-Young of the protagonist's feats, single-handedly facing the Red Wolf platoons and effortlessly defeating A-rank martial artists with a single strike. To him, it was like watching mere flies challenge a Godzilla. Despite witnessing the entire event up close, Sir-Young downplayed the protagonist's actions, believing she could achieve the same with her full strength. On the contrary, Robert held a completely different view, convinced that in the best-case scenario, he could only make a scratch on the Red Wolf platoons. Eager to discuss the day's events further, he realized that the captain had already disregarded him and walked away. Approaching the boy, she struck the table abruptly. Unlike Robert, who was intimidated by the boy, she demanded a thorough and serious conversation to clarify any doubts about him. The boy, however, didn't deem it necessary and unsurprisingly declined the captain's request, insisting that he wouldn't engage in conversation until he had finished his meal. Captain Sir-Young refused to back down. She sat directly in front of the boy and declared that if they didn't communicate properly, there would be no hot dogs for anyone. Without waiting for the boy's consent, she posed her first question. "What's your name?" Robert intervened, suggesting that the captain should use honorifics first. However, she disregarded his advice and repeated her question with a different tone. "Are you deaf? What's your fucking name?" Before receiving an answer, Sunja arrived and captured the protagonist's attention with a platter full of hot dogs, grilled or roasted just as they liked. Despite the tempting sight, Captain Sir-Young forbade the boy from touching the food until he answered her questions. The boy remained silent, contemplating whether to display a fraction of his power to the girl, but ultimately chose not to. Sensing the impending danger, Robert once again attempted to dissuade the captain, proposing that the boy could answer her questions properly after eating. Surprisingly, the boy opted to respond to the girl's initial question, introducing himself as Lee Mokjin. Captain Sir-Young proceeded with her second inquiry. "What's your identity? I mean your past profession?" The boy hesitated for a moment, reluctant to reveal this information. However, the determined girl was adamant about obtaining an answer. It was at that moment the boy decided to disclose that he was once part of the Heavenly Demon sect from 2,000 years ago, holding the prestigious title of Supreme Heavenly Demon. Like the others present, the girl was left in awe, utterly stunned by the revelation that the seemingly frail boy was a supreme figure in the Heavenly Demon sect. For a fleeting moment, she entertained the idea that perhaps the sausages Sunja had fed him were poisoned, affecting his mind and prompting him to make such fantastical claims. Just then, a sudden crimson alert seized everyone's attention. Sunja abandoned the food meant for the boy and swiftly checked the system, only to discover a grave warning indicating that their spaceship was being targeted at an alarmingly close range. Captain Seryong's initial panic led her to believe that the heavenly demon sect had arrived to exact retribution for the boy's actions. However, Sunja clarified that the threat did not originate from the heavenly demon sect, but from another formidable group known as the Greenwood Bandits. This revelation instilled a sense of heightened danger, as the entire gang of Greenwood Bandits had been dispatched to apprehend their truck, spaceship, and its occupants. Meanwhile, an ominous figure observed the S-Devil gang from above, unmistakably the same individual who had conversed with the old man mere hours ago. This unseemly character bore the name Kim Sung-bom and held the leadership position within the Galaxy Division of the 72 strongholds of Greenwood. In a strategic move, one of his subordinates arrived to confirm the successful encirclement of their bounty target, the S-Devil gang, seeking permission to deploy an EMP to incapacitate them and secure their capture. The unattractive man inquired whether their target truly consisted of just a mediocre group of bounty hunters. The general reviewed a detailed report about them, affirming the leader's assertions. Lost in contemplation, he pondered why a prominent member of the Heavenly Demon sect would task him with eliminating such a minor group. Recalling his conversation with the old man, the District 32 commander, where he had accepted the bounty, he remembered asking what to do upon capturing the designated target. The old man had bluntly instructed them not to capture the target, but to eliminate them on sight. At that moment, the man had been taken aback by the Heavenly Demon sect's directive to erase a small group of bounty hunters without a trace. Now, Kim Sung-bom realized there was an air of suspicion surrounding this gang that warranted further consideration. Acknowledging that the Heavenly Demon sect possessed far superior skills in taking lives than they did, he was convinced that they must have a compelling reason to avoid confronting this group directly. In his estimation, there likely lurked a perilous and fatal trap within that ship that they needed to steer clear of. Meanwhile, within the confines of the S-Devil spaceship, which was completely encircled, Captain Seryong and Robert observed the situation with a sense of composure, albeit perplexed by the motives behind the Greenwood Bandits' decision to target them for robbery, considering the bandits were notorious for their thievery. Utilizing 6 specialized robots in unison, the Greenwood Bandits effectively immobilized and secured their ship. The audacity of not only bringing the gang, but also deploying their most advanced technology to plunder a modest group of bounty hunters like themselves deeply perturbed Captain Seryong. With unwavering confidence in her own abilities, Captain Seryong began to stride purposefully around, asserting that it did not matter who their adversaries were. She would triumph over them and expel them from their ship. Meanwhile, Lee Mokjin marveled at the sight of the imposing Greenwood spaceships. It was then that Sunja shattered Captain Seryong's illusions by revealing that it was not merely a few Greenwood spaceships present, but the entire division, amounting to approximately 100 sizable vessels. Pausing for a moment to process this revelation, Captain Seryong contemplated the implications of the entire division's presence, realizing that their leader, Kim Sung-bom, must also be among them. She understood all too well that she stood no chance against him in a one-on-one confrontation, and now he had arrived with a formidable army at his disposal. Robert chimed in, echoing the sentiment to Captain Seryong, stating, "You'd be done for in 3 moves if you dare to confront that individual." Despite Robert's cautionary words, the girl remained steadfast in her belief that she was not as vulnerable as he portrayed her to be. The protagonist, unfazed by the girl's words or the perilous circumstances they faced, stood transfixed by the sight of the magnificent and alluring spaceships before them. Robert proposed surrendering the spaceship, reasoning that they had little to lose in the first place. However, the girl held a divergent viewpoint. Assertively, she proclaimed that henceforth everyone would adhere strictly to her directives. She outlined her plan of action. First, they would unleash an EMP capture round to disable the ship's energy, a decision she sanctioned. Next, they would board the ship armed, another measure she approved. Lastly, they would conduct a thorough search inside the ship for valuable items, a task she also authorized. Robert was taken aback, questioning whether her strategy was not akin to surrendering, as he had initially suggested. Following this, she approached Lee Mokjin, exuding confidence as she endeavored to reassure the boy, assuring him that there was no need for concern as she had everything firmly under her control. Captain Seryong reiterated the constraints imposed by space laws, emphasizing that the bandits were prohibited from utilizing their ship's weapons and would only deploy an EMP. On the other hand, the boy remained transfixed by the unfolding spectacle, rendering him oblivious to her instructions. Consequently, she left him to his reverie, urging him not to intervene if the bandits breached their spaceship. Shortly thereafter, the red alert sounded once more, prompting the captain to maintain her composure, reassured that it was merely an EMP and posed no physical harm. However, Sunja's expression morphed into one of shock as she revealed that the bandits had targeted their ship's photon cannon rather than employing an EMP. The gravity of this revelation left the girl momentarily paralyzed, coming to terms with the realization that the bandits intended not to rob them, but to obliterate their ship and eliminate them. Despite her escalating anxiety, she recognized that fleeing was the only viable course of action in this dire situation. Meanwhile, the leader of the Greenwood Bandits, Kim Sungbom, observed the small ship from a distance, his gaze fixed intently on the unfolding events. One of his subordinates attempted to caution him against the repercussions of violating space laws by exterminating the bounty hunters, suggesting a more discreet approach of capturing and disposing of them. However, Kim Sungbom harbored a foreboding apprehension, commanding the general to obliterate the target and reduce them to ashes. In the event of any inquiries, he mandated that their clients, the Heavenly Demon sect, would shoulder the blame. Fixing his gaze with an intense stare, he ordered the immediate commencement of fire as soon as the ship's cannons were fully charged. On the other side, the captain and Sunja frantically attempted to devise an escape plan from the looming threat. The captain proposed evasive maneuvers to dodge the cannons, but Sunja grimly pointed out their inability to budge an inch. In a last-ditch effort, Seryung commanded Sunja to activate their shields. However, Sunja ruefully reminded her that they had sold a portion of the shields previously when they were in dire need of funds, rendering them non-functional. The stark reality dawned on Seryung, signaling the end of their brief stint as bounty hunters. Meanwhile, the bandit leader's general confirmed the full charge of the cannon's energy, signaling readiness to unleash destruction. Without a moment's hesitation, Kim Sungbom issued the order to fire the cannon. The ensuing colossal and lethal assault possessed the power to annihilate a significantly larger battleship, leaving the S-Devil's diminutive craft on the brink of obliteration in a matter of seconds. Each member aboard the ship gazed helplessly at the impending doom, their hopes dashed and hearts filled with despair. In a fraction of a second, the devastating blow struck its mark, culminating in a massive explosion, all while Kim Sungbom, the unsightly figure, observed the unfolding carnage with a sense of ease. However, his expression abruptly shifted to one of shock and trepidation as the seemingly unscathed small spaceship emerged from the inferno. It became apparent that the intervention of another vessel had intercepted the cannon's assault. This newcomer's ship, distinct from the bandits' vessels, boasted an immaculate white spherical design, defiantly standing against the bandit armada. Shortly after, a blonde girl wielding a spear emerged atop the pristine white craft, bravely confronting the bandits, not with her formidable ship, but with her own presence. The captain, who had resigned herself to an imminent demise, found herself astounded by the unforeseen turn of events unfolding before her eyes. Similarly, Kim Sungbom was caught off guard by the appearance of a renowned martial artist before him, disrupting his carefully laid plans. In a fleeting moment of recognition, he identified the girl as the legendary 8-foot fighting ghost, Elena, a formidable opponent renowned enough to compel the leader to reconsider his strategies to avoid clashing with her. On the other side, Lee Mokjin, Robert, and Seryung observed their savior in shock and disbelief. Elena disregarded them and boldly marched towards the Greenwood gang as a solitary and fearless warrior, ready to confront them single-handedly. Witnessing the scene, Kim Sungbom's expression transitioned from surprise to anger as he pondered why such a formidable individual would intervene in his mission and disrupt his plans at the 11th hour. His subordinate then reported that a Terra Formation-grade shield had thwarted their initial attack, but proposed maxing out their photon cannon's output to breach the shield, seeking permission to proceed. However, Kim hesitated to incite a global conflict over a minor target and opted for activating teleportation instead. Meanwhile, back at the truck spaceship, Robert observed Elena from behind, still puzzled by the appearance of such an amazing person coming to their aid. Despite his familiarity with Elena, he struggled to comprehend why an S-class martial artist, whom many clans and sects avoided crossing, would protect them. The same perplexing question lingered in the captain's mind, though she remained silent on the matter. Se-ryung, on the other hand, recognized one undeniable fact. Had Elena not intercepted the attack, they would have been reduced to ashes by now. Shortly after, the Greenwood's commander materialized before Elena, respectfully greeting her and addressing her as Sister Elena. However, Elena maintained her silence, showing no inclination to engage in conversation with him. Undeterred, Kim continued his dialogue, inquiring if Elena recalled him, introducing himself as her 55th brother, and reminiscing about their last encounter at their mother's birthday celebration 2 years prior. In response, he received a curt, "Get lost," which left him stunned, unprepared for such a blunt dismissal. Unable to address this abrupt rudeness, he attempted a different approach, asserting that he was not there as her brother, but as the leader of the Galaxy Division of Greenwood. With unwavering confidence, he emphasized that insulting him equated to insulting the entire Greenwood organization, a stance Kim Sungbom found intolerable. Elena remained silent, her actions speaking louder than words, as she emitted a faint red aura, signaling her unwavering resolve to confront them all. Observing the tense standoff, including Robert, everyone realized they were on the brink of a confrontation. In contrast, Captain Se-ryung held a divergent view, understanding that even the entire Greenwood gang would struggle against Elena alone, and considering the possibility of her lioness mother's intervention. Lee Mokjin stood among the spectators, silently enjoying the unfolding spectacle without offering any input. Within moments, Elena's aura intensified, growing in size and intensity. Sensing the escalating tension, Kim Sungbom, her supposed brother, recognized the futility of engaging in combat. He raised his hands in a gesture of surrender, acknowledging the futility of fighting Elena over such a trivial matter. Understanding the futility of challenging Elena for a task beneath her caliber, he wisely chose to de-escalate the situation and avoid unnecessary conflict. But still, the man remained curious, eager to understand why she had intervened in their mission, questioning the motive behind disrupting a situation that seemed on the verge of peaceful resolution. Unsurprisingly, Elena once again ignored her supposed brother's inquiry and bluntly instructed him to depart, leaving the scene herself and striding purposefully towards the truck spaceship. While Kim Sungbom anticipated this response, the unexpected turn of events left him bewildered. The S-Devil gang observed the unfolding drama with caution. It was at this moment that Elena made contact with their spaceship, without offering any explanation, issuing a stark ultimatum: "Hand it over or I'll kill you all." The gang members were momentarily taken aback, still processing Elena's unexpected demand. As the captain contemplated the unfolding events, Robert, displaying quick wit, deduced that Elena's intentions were not purely altruistic, but rather inclined towards theft. He speculated about the potential valuables on board, wondering if Captain Se-ryung had concealed something significant within the ship without telling him. Amidst Robert's rising panic, Se-ryung maintained her composure, knowing that they possessed nothing extraordinary to attract the attention of an S-rank entity. However, a shift in focus occurred as Se-ryung's gaze fixed upon the ancient guy, Lee Mokjin, prompting Robert to follow suit. Their eyes met, locking onto the protagonist, creating an atmosphere thick with unspoken tension. On the other hand, the boy continued to gaze outside, paying little heed to the unfolding dynamics inside the ship. There, a question lingered in the captain's mind, prompting her to inquire without hesitation, "Do you happen to know that woman?" She pondered the possibility of a historical connection or a romantic entanglement between them. This time, the boy did not ignore the captain, but instead asserted that the woman was not there because of him. Momentarily perplexed by his cryptic response, Se-ryung failed to grasp its significance, considering that they had no noteworthy items in their possession. Suddenly, the boy turned his head and suggested that Elena was likely searching for that particular child. In unison, they redirected their gazes, scanning the surroundings for the elusive child mentioned by the protagonist, yet found no one in sight. The captain, unable to contain her curiosity, pressed for clarification on the child's identity and the reason behind Elena's threatening. In response, Lee Mokjin bypassed further explanation and directly called for the child to reveal herself, assuring her safety in their presence, promising to protect her. no matter the cost. Despite the room appearing vacant, a girl began materializing before them, exuding an aura of shame and silence. As her form solidified, she appeared to be a teenager, impeccably dressed akin to a model. As anticipated, the captain and Robert found themselves utterly dumbfounded by the unexpected arrival of a strikingly beautiful young lady in the midst of their journey aboard the ship. The enigmatic presence of this mysterious girl added a new layer of intrigue to their already eventful journey. All inquisitive, Captain Se-ryung approached Lee Mok-jin and urged him to elucidate how the young girl had materialized on their ship, contemplating the possibility of magic at play. Here, the boy revealed that the girl had trailed them from the inn, concealing her true appearance and employing a stealthy presence that he alone could discern, opting to keep her hidden. In just a few moments, the protagonist found himself not captivated by her beauty, but rather by her adept stealth skills at such a tender age, pondering the advancements in martial arts over 2,000 years. However, his assumptions were swiftly corrected by Sunja, who disclosed that the concealment was not a martial arts technique, but instead an artifact known as a stealth ring, a highly valuable item imbued with quantum technology. At this revelation, Captain Se-ryung, unwilling to tolerate a stranger infiltrating her vessel, confronted the girl directly, demanding to know her identity and purpose aboard their ship. Startled by the sudden interrogation, the girl, Manhwa Rin, mustered the courage to introduce herself with a trembling voice. Unperturbed, Se-ryung pressed on with her inquiries, her tone laced with anger, questioning whether the girl was being pursued and if she was the intended target of those mysterious adversaries. In a moment of vulnerability, Manhwa Rin confessed that she was indeed likely being pursued, declaring they won't stop chasing after her until they find what they want. Interrupting the tense exchange, Robert interjected, addressing Manhwa Rin by name and expressing disbelief at her presence. This revelation piqued Se-ryung's interest, prompting her to query Robert's familiarity with the girl. As Robert approached them, he proudly declared his acquaintance with Manhwa Rin, recognizing her as the lead vocalist of Pronosian, a revelation that added a new layer of complexity to the unfolding situation. Se-ryung couldn't quite place where she had heard Manhwa Rin's name before, yet a faint sense of familiarity lingered within her. Robert, sensing her confusion, attempted to jog her memory by highlighting Manhwa Rin's role as the lead vocalist of Se-ryung's favorite song, a tune she often danced to with joy. He also mentioned her status as part of an idol group revered by many. To provide further context, Robert retrieved his phone from his pocket and displayed a charming picture of Manhwa Rin. As the misunderstanding began to unravel, Elena's voice shattered the brief moment of peace, issuing a final warning that demanded the surrender of the girl within 10 minutes, threatening the total destruction of the ship if her demand went unmet. The stark reality of the impending danger resurfaced, momentarily overshadowing their personal revelations and concerns. In this tense moment, Robert sought to comprehend Elena's pursuit of Manhwa Rin, expressing his earnest desire to ensure her safety. Before receiving any answers, Se-ryung, after a brief contemplation, intervened decisively. She asserted that understanding Elena's motives was irrelevant at this critical juncture, and, with unwavering resolve, declared Manhwa Rin an unwelcome guest aboard their vessel. In light of the life-threatening situation at hand, Se-ryung insisted that the girl depart immediately to avert any potential harm befalling them all. Robert attempted to sway Captain Se-ryung's resolve, yet it became evident that her decision was final, unwilling to jeopardize their lives for the sake of one girl. Manhwa Rin, understanding the gravity of the situation, silently acquiesced to her grim fate. Without protest, she made her way to the safe room, preparing to disembark the ship and submit herself to Elena's demands. Meanwhile, Robert directed his frustration towards the captain for what he perceived as a heartless choice. Despite Robert's emotional plea, Se-ryung remained steadfast in her reasoning, acknowledging the lack of viable options to confront Elena's threat. The imminent danger left them no room for defiance, leading Se-ryung to prioritize their survival above all else. Sensing the somber acceptance from Manhwa Rin, it became apparent that she, too, recognized the harsh reality of their predicament. As Se-ryung initiated the process of escorting Manhwa Rin off the ship, A sense of remorse washed over her, second-guessing her decision in the face of the girl's impending surrender. Standing alone before the ship's gate, Yang Hua-rin exuded a palpable sadness at the prospect of leaving and submitting herself to an uncertain fate. In a surprising turn of events, a comforting hand gently rested on her shoulder, breaking the solitude of her despondent moment. To everyone's astonishment, the protagonist, Lee Mok-jin, stepped forward to offer his assistance, catching Yang Hua-rin off guard with his unexpected support. In an effort to alleviate her distress and apprehension, Lee Mok-jin reassured her of his commitment to safeguard her, fulfilling a promise he had made. His unexpected act of solidarity provided a glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak situation, signaling a shift in the unfolding narrative. The young lady found herself overwhelmed by emotions, uncertain of how to react as she watched the boy in astonishment. However, the one most taken aback was Captain Se-ryung, who was dumbfounded to discover the ancient boy had infiltrated the safe room despite all entrances being sealed. Frantically, she attempted to secure the gate that she had unwittingly opened moments before. In contrast to Se-ryung's urgency, Robert harbored a different perspective. Defying the captain's wishes, he adamantly opposed the idea of allowing the boy to depart the ship under current circumstances, intrigued by the potential outcome of a confrontation between him and Elena, whom he deemed equals in some enigmatic sense. Se-ryung, however, cautioned Robert about the harsh reality of outer space, emphasizing the peril the boy would face when confronting Elena without adequate protection. Amidst a sense of helplessness, Se-ryung turned to Sunja, requesting that she seal the gate from the control room. Regrettably, Sunja disclosed that it was too late, revealing that they had already departed from the spaceship, leaving them with no means to rectify the situation. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Se-ryung ventured to the safe room to confirm the unsettling truth, only to find it empty, devoid of any trace of the mysterious guy. In that poignant moment of realization, Captain Se-ryung stood frozen, grappling with the weight of losing their weird new member, who had surreptitiously crossed their path. Yang Hua-rin and Lee Mok-jin strolled calmly as they departed from the ship, drawing nearer to Elena's commanding presence. Just like inside the ship, Hua-rin stood at the forefront, with the boy gripping her shoulder, a gesture that the young girl gratefully acknowledged amidst the perilous circumstances. She expressed her gratitude to the boy for steadfastly remaining by her side in such a dangerous situation, reminding him of the formidable martial artists surrounding them, with Elena reigning above all, cautioning him against risking harm alongside her. However, upon turning to meet the boy's gaze, Yang Hua-rin sensed a disconcerting change. His eyes shifted to a crimson hue mere moments after their departure from the ship, his visage morphing into that of someone on the brink of suffocation. Yang Hua-rin swiftly realized that the protagonist lacked the specialized shield worn by spacefarers to endure the vacuum and extreme cold of space. Hailing from 2,000 years ago, the bewildered man attempted to propel himself back towards the ship, his movements akin to swimming in water, unaware of the technological advancements of their time. Witnessing his struggle, Yang Hua-rin's initial doubts solidified into certainty that the man lacked the vital shield and faced imminent peril. Despite his frantic movements, Lee Mok-jin remained weightless in space, unable to navigate back to the safety of the ship without assistance. From a distance, Elena and the Greenwood's commander observed the unfolding scene in wonder, unable to discern the precise nature of the unfolding drama before them. The poor guy, who had been acting bravely just moments ago, was now paddling for survival hopelessly. His face was on the verge of blowing up at any moment, and his skin was about to freeze from the unbearable coldness of space. Finally, he surrendered himself to fate, having no more energy to fight back against his doomed destiny. He lost consciousness momentarily, but God had different plans for him as a savior arrived out of nowhere and touched the boy's face. Surprisingly, it was Captain Se-ryung, who had tried to reach the boy as quickly as possible and was now worried that she might be too late. Without hesitation, she attached a nanoshield to Lee Mok-jin's face and activated it. Shouting in disbelief, she said, "Wake up! Are you alive? Please breathe already. Please!" In that moment, her eyes widened, not from sadness, but from the shock of seeing the boy, who was conscious and perfectly normal, asking her if she was about to kiss him in the middle of space. Seryung decided to remove her hand from the boy's face, showing that she was mad at him, but inside she felt relief to see that the boy was alive. The boy, who had been on the brink of suffocation and freezing to death just moments ago, declared with confidence in his voice that there was nothing in this world that could threaten his life, telling her not to worry about him. But even though he believed himself to be immortal, he faced one problem. Lee Mokjin didn't know how to maneuver in space, making it difficult for him to approach Mount Hua. That's when Captain Seryung took matters into her own hands, grabbing his hand and pulling him towards Elena's spaceship. Robert watched them in awe and shock. They thanked God that Seryung was able to reach and save the boy before it was too late. However, Sunja pointed out that she was actually very late, as even the greatest masters in the entire galaxy couldn't survive in space without a shield for less than a minute. Yet somehow, this guy endured it for 6 minutes and 13 seconds, with none of his organs sustaining any damage. It was at that moment that both of them realized this boy had already far surpassed human limits. After a short time, Seryung and Mokjin reached the cute girl, Mount Hua, a sight that caught the girl off guard. A little further away, the leader of Greenwood and Elena observed them in silence. Both parties stood motionless, eyeing each other for a few moments. Captain Seryung's gaze was fixed solely on Elena, recalling the terrifying rumors she had heard about her and now coming face to face with her. Standing behind Elena was Kim Sungbom, the commander of Greenwood, undoubtedly weaker compared to Elena, but a formidable force in his own right even without his army. Summoning her courage, the girl took a step forward to address the situation personally, instructing Mokjin not to intervene and create trouble once more. Despite her trepidation, she approached with a cheerful demeanor, respectfully greeting both Elena and Sungbom, attempting to defuse the tension peacefully. However, the siblings dismissed her, deeming her unworthy of conversation and unwilling to disclose the reasons for their pursuit. Suddenly, Mount Hua grabbed Mokjin's hand in a surprising move that even the boy did not anticipate. When he looked at the girl's face to understand the reason behind her sudden tight grip, he noticed her abnormal expression, fear and nervousness clouding her features. The protagonist tried to reassure the girl, promising her safety as long as he was by her side. However, Elena's notorious reputation as the fighting ghost prevented her from staying calm. Aware of Elena's history of traveling the galaxy and engaging in battles with numerous skilled martial artists since childhood, with none of her opponents surviving their encounters, Mount Hua revealed that Elena had custom-built the spaceship for arena fights to streamline her endeavors. Hearing this, Mokjin marveled at encountering someone with such exceptional talent, someone who dedicated her very soul and heart to martial training. In the midst of their conversation, Mount Hua's eyes suddenly widened as she noticed something approaching Captain Seryung while the captain was engrossed in her playful antics, oblivious to the impending danger. It was Elena's attack, triggering a massive explosion that engulfed the S-Devil gang, signaling Elena's impatience with Seryung's childish behavior and her desire to display a glimpse of her power to them. The cold, determined look in Elena's blue eyes conveyed her prowess in wielding her weapon, surpassing her skills in verbal sparring. She was confident that her strike had found its mark, presuming she had taken down all of them in a single blow, given the absence of any visible figures amidst the billowing smoke. To everyone's surprise, Seryung emerged in the center of the smoke, having evaded Elena's attack at the last possible moment by leaping like a grasshopper. Now, she was incensed at the turn of events, feeling that despite her attempts to maintain a peaceful dialogue, Elena had resorted to such aggression. Sungbom, on the other hand, held admiration for Seryung's evasion of the attack, acknowledging the difficulty of such a feat for anyone. He recognized the girl as the captain of the S-Devil gang, the fiery devil named Seryung. Nonetheless, he understood that it might have been wiser for her not to dodge the attack, viewing his sister Elena as a volatile scorpion, whose venom grew deadlier with each provocation. He believed that the more seriously Seryung engaged in the conflict, the more excruciating her fate would be in return. At that precise moment, the sound of hiccups permeated the air, first capturing Seryung's attention, and then that of the Greenwood's leader. It was Mount Hua who was hiccuping, overcome with fear from Elena's assault, while Mokjin endeavored to comfort her and ease her distress. Kim Sungbom stood there, utterly bewildered by how these ordinary individuals managed to survive Elena's attack without evading it. Meanwhile, Muarin's persistent hiccups prompted the boy to gently pat her back several times, advising her to regulate her breathing to halt the hiccups sooner. Elena, true to form, did not wait for them to compose themselves and readied herself once again to eliminate them once and for all. An intense blue aura enveloped her, gradually shifting to a pink hue within moments, signaling her ascent to the next level in confronting her adversaries. Observing the boy's exclusive focus on the girl's hiccups rather than on Elena further fueled Elena's growing fury. However, it did not take long for the protagonist to step forward and address Elena with a rather audacious term, child. This action, initially forbidden by Captain Seryong, left her slightly irritated with the boy. Undeterred by Seryong's displeasure, he dared to inquire about Elena's intentions toward Muarin, asserting that any dealings should be directed to him as the girl was under his protection, making it his duty to handle any matters concerning her. In the midst of this exchange, Sungbom scrutinized the boy intently, only to discover that everything about him remained shrouded in mystery. Startled for the second time, he was taken aback by the realization that he was facing an enigmatic figure from the outskirts, devoid of a known identity. With Elena offering no response, the boy urged her and the others to depart peacefully and refrain from causing any further disturbances if they lacked legitimate reasons for being there. In the blink of an eye, a brilliant light darted towards the protagonist, illuminating the entire spaceship like a celestial body. This time, there was no explosion, leaving everyone present stunned and incredulous. Accompanied by a resounding thunderclap, the light gradually waned, much to the disbelief of the onlookers. It was Elena's attack, halted by the boy's bare hand. He made no effort to withdraw his other hand from his pocket, confident that one palm was sufficient to intercept the strike. It dawned on him that Elena's purpose in coming was to engage him in combat, elucidating the reason for her presence. This unforeseen development rendered the usually unsightly Sungbom speechless, his astonishment and bewilderment palpable as the act of deflecting Elena's attack with a mere palm surpassed his expectations. Meanwhile, Mokjin swiftly analyzed the martial arts techniques employed by his adversary, marveling at Elena's adeptness in seamlessly utilizing a variety of techniques concurrently. In his earthly existence 2,000 years ago, he had never encountered an individual capable of mastering such an array of techniques simultaneously. It seemed improbable. Nevertheless, Elena paid no heed to the boy and proceeded to escalate her internal energy to its peak, enhancing her readiness to confront the protagonist. Within moments, her energy surged to 90%, unleashing a wild aura into the sky, much to the boy's surprise. Subsequently, her internal energy peaked at 95%, causing the aura to expand even more fervently around her. As a mere spectator, the leader of the Greenwood clan sensed the imminent danger, witnessing Elena in this formidable state for the first time. Observing Elena's escalating power, the protagonist, on the other hand, finally acknowledged the gravity of the situation and his opponent, manifesting a faint blue aura around his fist as a sign of his newfound seriousness in the impending conflict. Suddenly, the ring adorning Elena's hand began to radiate a luminous glow, its brilliance expanding with each passing second, accompanied by a distinct sound, signaling her imminent attack. However, it was not merely an artifact meant for augmenting power, rather it served as a forewarning. As the light enveloped her, she found herself engulfed in memories of the past, reminiscing about seeking her mother's approval to venture beyond their home and seek adversaries across the galaxy. Recalling her mother's assurances that there were fewer than 10 individuals in the entire world capable of posing a threat to her, and even collectively, they could not bring about her demise, Elena vividly remembered the moment her mother granted her the liberty to lead a life of her choosing under one stipulation. Entrusting her with a ring, her mother emphasized that upon hearing its distinctive sound, Elena must depart without hesitation, a pact she reluctantly accepted. Despite her reluctance to honor her promise to her mother, the disdainful gaze and demeanor of Mokjin left her feeling humiliated, resurrecting the painful memories of her childhood. Witnessing her numerous siblings, all born of the same mother but different fathers, treating her as inferior was an anguish Elena could not bear. These recollections of yesteryears served as a catalyst, propelling her beyond her perceived limits, culminating in her channeling an unprecedented 110% of her eternal energy. Unyielding, she continued to push herself, surpassing even that threshold to attain 120% of her eternal energy, causing her aura to intensify wildly with each passing moment. This time, however, an event unfolded that not only captured Mokjin's attention, but also left Seryung and Sungbom astounded to their core. Elena's once beautiful visage now concealed behind a mask, her spear transformed into a more menacing form. Though uncertain of Elena's peculiar stances, the boy marveled at her awakening through this metamorphosis. With a reservoir of energy amassed, Elena resolved to strike the protagonist, hurtling towards him with swiftness, intent on catching him off guard and dispatching him mercilessly. Anticipating this pivotal moment, the boy stood prepared, allowing Elena to draw near before effortlessly evading her initial assault. Unsurprisingly, Elena refused to grant him a swift departure, persisting in her relentless barrage, yet each strike was deftly sidestepped by the boy. Unbeknownst to him, each evasion stoked Elena's sense of humiliation, fueling her wrath to exceed its limits, culminating in her harnessing 140% of her eternal energy. Employing unfamiliar techniques, she instilled a sense of impending overpowerment in the protagonist with each passing moment. As Elena's eternal energy surged to 170% and she launched an assault on the protagonist, Mokjin eschewed mere evasion, opting to engage in a serious counterattack. Employing his martial prowess, he unleashed his technique just as Elena closed in once more, resulting in a prodigious explosion within the confines of the spaceship, as foreseen. Unexpectedly, what unfolded before them was beyond anyone's anticipation. Not Seryung, Muarin, nor the leader of the Greenwood clan, but even the protagonist himself was confronted by a transformed Elena, unscathed and resplendent in a new form adorned with 8 hands. Through some inexplicable connection, Mokjin's previous assault seemed to catalyze her metamorphosis, elevating her to a state where she hovered in the sky, wielding 8 swords in her multitude of hands. With unwavering resolve, she propelled herself towards the boy, her speed rivaling that of a hypersonic missile, her eternal energy soaring to unprecedented heights at 190%. Meanwhile, the protagonist remained steadfast in his position, hands nonchalantly tucked in his pockets, prepared to confront Elena. Each harbored their own motivations, one seeking glory, the other intent on honoring a promise made. As they hurtled towards each other, a collision imminent, the boy silently hoped to dissuade Elena from her course of action, recognizing that should she persist, she would breach a threshold with dire repercussions awaiting her. However, Elena displayed no inkling of halting her advance, leaving the boy with no recourse but to fulfill his vow and protect the child sheltered behind him. With a flicker of his hand, he conjured lightning that seamlessly transformed into a radiant sword of light, poised to shield the girl in his defense. As the inevitable collision loomed, Captain Seryung and Commander Sungbom stood transfixed, astounded by the sight of a heartsword in the boy's grasp, an exceedingly rare martial art technique known only from ancient texts. In the fleeting moment before Elena reached him, the boy found himself immersed in a life-or-death duel, prompting him to act swiftly. Without hesitation, he unleashed a ferocious strike with his heartsword, fueled by the frustration evoked by Elena's reckless behavior. The ensuing surge of lightning that permeated the atmosphere left all bystanders bewildered and spellbound. The unexpected turn of events caused the once formidable and steadfast spaceship to crumble into oblivion within seconds, disintegrating into a cascade of destruction. The resulting explosion was so potent that it radiated a luminosity akin to a falling star, its brilliance visible across the vast expanse of the galaxy. As an observer, the general of the Greenwood, who was directly under Sangbom, was left feeling bewildered, realizing that the leader of the Greenwood and everyone else must have perished in the explosion. However, just then, the sound of someone coughing filled the air. It was Kim Sungbom, who miraculously survived and managed to teleport back to the spaceship. Despite his survival, he had sustained serious injuries. Even in that condition, the leader of the Greenwood hurried to the window to see what had happened to the others, still unable to believe he had survived the explosion. He mentioned that even a split second of hesitation before teleporting back could have turned him to ash for the sake of the Greenwood. Upon witnessing the scene, he soon realized that Elena's spaceship had been shattered to pieces, with no sign of anyone else. Unbeknownst to him, the protagonist and the girls were alive, while Captain Seryung was furious. blaming the boy for his actions without considering their safety, calling it a suicidal move that endangered all their lives. Despite sustaining injuries, Lee Mokjin revealed that showing restraint in that situation wasn't an option. Se-ryung approached him and immediately noticed the boy's injuries, feeling worried about him. However, the boy seemed unconcerned about himself, focusing solely on the sky above, where he encountered a power much greater than he had anticipated. Following his gaze, Captain Se-ryung saw Elena's lifeless body floating in space, stripped of her shield and weapon, just a short distance away. Se-ryung wondered whether the formidable Elena was truly deceased. Mokjin assured Se-ryung that Elena was alive, as a much stronger force had protected her in the final moments. A woman suddenly appeared out of nowhere and embraced the girl, a beautiful figure cloaked in mystery to conceal her identity. It became apparent that she was Elena's mother, arriving swiftly to rescue her daughter upon sensing her peril. With care and gentleness, she endeavored to transport Elena's unconscious body back to her spaceship, successfully doing so. Everyone except Mokjin immediately recognized the woman and was shocked by her presence. The situation took a turn for the more complex, as Elena's mother, known not for bearing hundreds of children, but as the West Heaven Sword Matron, made her grand entrance, one of the 5 most powerful beings in the entire world. Meanwhile, the protagonist sensed the looming danger and remained prepared to defend himself. However, peace settled over them once the woman brought Elena back to the spaceship and submerged her in a special healing liquid to expedite her recovery. As Elena's mother watched over her in this state, she couldn't help but feel anxious for her beloved daughter. Unexpectedly, at her command, the others gathered behind her, with Kim Sungbom showing her the utmost respect as if she were his own mother. Apart from him, the rest quietly observed the unfolding scene, hesitant to utter a word. The leader of the Greenwood began to offer apologies and show more respect to his mother, who appeared younger than himself. However, the West Heaven Sword Matron instructed him to remain silent and not interfere, commanding him to act as though he had never been present. Upon turning away, she unexpectedly showed respect to Mokjin and introduced herself, a sight neither her son nor Se-ryung could have fathomed witnessing. The woman went on to express regret for intervening in the duel between the boy and Elena out of maternal affection. She even offered to sever her own arm as punishment for breaking the laws. Nevertheless, the boy promptly declined the offer, stating that her severed hand would be of no use to him. Perplexed by the unfolding events, Mokjin inquired whether the girl she had fought earlier was indeed the woman's daughter. Observing his casual tone, Se-ryung attempted to remind him to speak more respectfully, emphasizing that the woman before them was one of the most powerful beings and deserved deference. Elena's mother confirmed her relationship to the girl, which was enough for the protagonist to forgive her, prioritizing family bonds over strict laws. Se-ryung once again tried to persuade Mokjin to show more respect, highlighting that she was one of the 5 immortals in the world, possessing unimaginable power. She also mentioned her notorious hot temper, capable of splitting him into 2 pieces with just a glare. However, their astonishment peaked when the immortal woman humbly knelt before the boy, displaying her gratitude in a surprising display of humility. The discussion during the meeting concluded shortly thereafter, prompting the woman to request a private conversation with Mokjin. She sought his permission to converse on the ship deck, to which the boy agreed without hesitation. A brief time later, the West Heaven Sword Matron elaborated that she was uncertain why her daughter had come to this place and engaged in combat with the boy, as Elena remained unconscious. Based on her own information, Elena had been assigned a mission on Mount Hua planet, but wasn't sure what exactly the mission was. While Mokjin stood silently by her side, seemingly lost in the scenery, Elena's mother mused about the boy's association with the heavenly demon sect, noting his utilization of techniques linked to the sect, such as the demon sword technique employed against Elena. At this juncture, the boy chose to speak, revealing a past connection with the heavenly demon sect. However, he omitted mentioning his former role as the sect's supreme leader, considering it inconsequential with the passage of time. Casting a glance at Se-ryung and Muarin, he philosophized about the erosive nature of time on even the strongest bonds, likening it to the corrosion of iron and dissolution of connections deeper than life itself. The woman, upon hearing this profound insight from Mokjin, discerned that he was no ordinary individual. As an attractive and woman with eternal life, she facetiously entertained the idea of having another child with this extraordinary figure, thinking maybe even stronger child than both of them could be born. Both the boy's appearance, the techniques he wielded, and his inner energy led her to believe he belonged to an ancient era, distinct from their own. Despite his youthful countenance resembling a 20-year-old, she pondered whether he had employed some rejuvenation technique to maintain his appearance. Not long after, the immortal woman courteously requested permission to convey a request to the protagonist. However, the boy interjected, before she could finish speaking, asking, "Are you proposing a serious duel?" Her reaction to this question was one of shock, yet Mokjin's words were not spoken without careful consideration. He perceived every word she uttered as laden with lethal intent, despite her outward politeness and respect, akin to a sword being honed on a whetstone, growing sharper with each passing moment. The boy asserted his readiness to accept any challenge, yet cautioned the woman that in a serious confrontation, one of them was likely to meet their demise, while the other would sustain severe injuries. Interpreting the boy's words as an agreement to engage in a duel, the West Heaven Sword began to prepare for battle, exuding a potent aura that enveloped her. Witnessing the emergence of this ominous purple aura, Captain Seryung was overcome with dread, sensing impending turmoil. While the boy remained nonchalant, gazing at the galaxy's pretty view, he suddenly inquired whether there was a compelling reason for them to engage in combat. This question caught the immortal woman off guard momentarily, yet as she beheld the boy's fearless countenance, she realized that if there was no substantial cause for the conflict, it would be wiser to postpone the duel to a future time. The boy's words struck a chord, successfully persuading the woman to compose herself and defer the confrontation until a genuine motive for battle arose. Just like that, the altercation concluded between the top martial artists of the New World and the S-Devil spaceship managed to evade the clutches of the Greenwood, Elena, and the immortal woman. The West Heaven Sword Matron observed their departure while her son, Kim Sung-bom, attempted to elucidate the situation, explaining that it was a mission from the Heavenly Demon sect to eliminate the S-Devil bounty hunters discreetly. However, his explanation did not suffice for his mother, as she was well aware of the boy's mastery of the supreme martial arts of the Heavenly Demon sect. The revelation that the sect itself sought the boy's demise left her perplexed. Sungbom mentioned the eradication of a faction of the Heavenly Demon sect known as the Red Wolf Platoon, raising the question of whether it was connected to the order to eliminate the boy. The immortal woman began to move away from the window, dismissing the need to dwell excessively on the matter. Disparaging her own son, she insinuated that his imagination would fall short in deciphering the situation, regardless of its complexity. As she passed by him, she instructed Sungbom to meticulously monitor their movements and provide reports, nothing more. Challenging her dismissive stance, Kim Sungbom asserted the Greenwood's expertise in tracking, assuring his mother that she could entrust this task to their capable hands. The immortal woman cast a sidelong glance at her son, observing him kneeling before her. She instructed Kim Sungbom to oversee the tracking of the S-Devil, but cautioned him against intervening under any circumstances. To his surprise, she expressed a sentiment that astonished Sungbom, revealing that her willingness to intervene stemmed from her desire to protect her child from harm, a sentiment unexpected from his beautiful yet stern mother. As she prepared to depart the room, a sudden question crossed her mind. "By the way, what is your name?" This inquiry shattered Sungbom's moment of relief, realizing that his mother did not even know his name. However, he rationalized that such oversight was not uncommon for a mother who had given birth to hundreds of children. The situation was a little bit different in the truck spaceship. Muarin was hiding behind the protagonist as she was scared to be punished by Seryung, who was furious, wondering what in the world that girl caused, maybe flipped the world upside down, that not only Greenwood, but even Elena, and, above them, the West Heaven Sword Matron came after her. Unaware of the true intentions behind the pursuit, Muarin found herself apologizing profusely for endangering their lives, perplexed as to why bounty hunters were targeting her. She recounted a seemingly innocuous tour that culminated in her return to her hometown on Mount Hua planet, only to discover a stark change in her surroundings. In her eyes, the familiar faces bore an inexplicable hostility towards her, prompting her desperate flight and eventual refuge aboard their ship. The boy sat beside Manhwa Rin, his attention consumed by his voracious appetite, rendering him indifferent to her words. Manhwa Rin's explanations failed to resonate with Seryung, prompting her to inquire if Sunja could shed light on the events in the girl's hometown, only to find Sunja equally perplexed. Left speechless and disheartened, Manhwa Rin gazed at the sausage pieces casually tossed from Mokjin's mouth onto the table. In a sudden fit of anger, Robert slammed his hand on the table, startling Manhwa Rin to the point of distress, causing her to tremble in fear, all while questioning her about Mount Hua, a planet he, too, once called home. Overwhelmed by Robert's abrupt outburst, the girl found herself on the brink of panic, urged by him to divulge the details of what transpired in his hometown. Meanwhile, Sunja observed the unfolding drama, opting not to intervene, pondering the sudden display of human eccentricity. On the West Heaven Sword matron's spaceship, she swiftly dismantled Elena's recovery tank shortly after the boy's departure. Standing over her daughter with a mixture of concern and urgency, she paused briefly before inquiring if Elena comprehended the events unfolding on Mount Hua planet. A query that the girl didn't expect to hear mere moments after regaining consciousness. Meanwhile, in a distant corner of the galaxy, within the Wild Crane Inn, the keeper of the inner sanctum found himself inexplicably drawn to the spectacle of Elena and Mokjin's altercation, albeit with a slight delay. Through unknown means, he monitored the movements of the S-Devil spaceship, gaining access to footage detailing the tumultuous events surrounding the bounty hunters. Witnessing the unfolding chaos, the unassuming innkeeper was flooded with memories of the day Seryung had approached him, seeking a broker for a comprehensive collection of S-rank martial arts, an opportunity he had dismissed at the time, now regretting his decision deeply. Several hours later, in District 32 of the Heavenly Demon Sect, the district commander too was watching the footage of Elena and Mokjin's battle with a mix of shock and awe. The old man couldn't believe his eyes, witnessing the incredible power of the technique the protagonist used against Elena. Just then, another individual entered the scene and inquired about Captain Jong Ritak's opinion on that technique, wondering if he was familiar with it. To everyone's surprise, it was the West Heaven Sword matron, Elena's mother, who had come to visit Commander Ritak. Despite acknowledging the advanced level of the martial art technique, the old man admitted that he had never heard of or seen this special technique before, not even knows its name, leaving him curious about the purpose of the sword matron's visit. The two of them locked gazes for a few seconds, but their interaction seemed more like that of sworn enemies than a loving couple. The sword matron continued to doubt the Heavenly Demon Sect's commander, suspecting that he might be hiding something from her. She then inquired about why they were pursuing that boy, especially considering Greenwood's involvement. Despite being respectful and asking politely, the old man refused to answer her question, stating that it was an internal matter of their sect, and he wouldn't disclose the details to outsiders, not even to the sword matron. However, in a split second, his neck was struck without him even seeing it coming. It was the moment Elena's mom decided to demonstrate that she was not just an ordinary individual who could be easily dismissed. The woman had no intention of killing the man. She had the ability to do so effortlessly, yet the injury to the man's neck failed to bring him to his senses. Instead, he retaliated by attacking, believing that the woman was declaring an all-out war against the entire Heavenly Demon Sect. The sword matron had no such intention. She simply sought some information. Nevertheless, she didn't fear to confront whole Heavenly Demon Sect if necessary. While the commander attempted to prevent bloodshed, he couldn't help but ponder the woman standing before him. He knew she wasn't an ordinary martial artist driven by mere profit or loss. With her immense power and brutal demeanor, she seemed unfazed by the prospect of initiating a conflict. Igniting her sword and exuding a formidable aura akin to when she faced Mokjin, she made it clear that she was deadly serious about her decision. Once more, she asked the old man if he intended to answer her question. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Commander Ritak understood that even if all 1,076 members of District 32 of the sect were to confront this woman, their chances of victory would be slim to none. Despite this daunting realization, he made the decision not to retreat, but to stand his ground and fight back, prepared to face the consequences, even if it meant risking his life. Witnessing the unwavering determination of the old man, Elena's mother came to the realization that maybe he truly had no knowledge of the matter at hand. She then made a bold choice to disclose that the technique the boy used was the infamous demon heart sword. Initially skeptical, the district's commander requested further explanation. In a gesture of goodwill, the sword matron decided to provide more details, elaborating on the technique that had wounded her daughter, Elena. Despite being an outsider and appearing much younger, she was well aware that the demon heart sword technique held the rank of the second strongest technique in the heavenly demon sect's martial hierarchy. Even after this detailed explanation, the old man found it challenging to believe the sword matron's words. To him, the technique had long been forgotten, existing only in ancient texts as a legendary tale. With a hint of humiliation in her voice, the woman informed Commander Ritak that his lack of knowledge was not her concern. After sharing all the information she possessed, she pressed on, questioning again why the heavenly demon sect was pursuing that boy and the S-Devil spaceship. As the old man glanced back, it became evident that she had successfully persuaded him to reveal the truth. In a surprising turn of events, it was disclosed that they were not after the boy, but in fact, they were seeking the girl hiding behind him. Meanwhile, in another part of the galaxy, where Mount Hua planet resided in the Talavaitra orbiting star system, the truck spaceship arrived to visit the hometown of the girl and Robert, likely seeking to clarify the situation regarding Mua Rin's statements about its people. In the city where Hua Rin had once lived, everything appeared perfect and normal. The doors of the stores were open, and all the lights were on, yet there was not a single person in sight, no one on the streets, in the yards, or anywhere else. From a distance, the S-Devil observed the city from the spaceship, while Seryung pondered whether it was a holiday, offering a possible explanation for the absence of people. However, Robert held a different perspective. With all the store doors open and lights ablaze in a town of 10,000 inhabitants devoid of any activity, the situation struck him as peculiar. Sunja also confirmed that the system indicated no signs of life signals. Anxiety gripped Robert as he feared the worst, imagining a horrifying event that either wiped out the entire population or forced them to flee. Urgently, he turned to Captain Seryung, requesting permission to land. Despite his genuine desire to assist his fellow citizens in his hometown, his agitation caused him to inadvertently overwhelm poor Seryung with his urgency. Alongside Robert, Mua Rin also felt a deep sense of concern and nervousness for her fellow citizens. Tears welled up in her eyes, gently streaming down her face, though unlike Robert, she remained composed, not making much noise in the process. The protagonist stood beside her, wearing an emotionless expression, as he inquired if the girl knew anything about the situation and suggested that it might be the best time to reveal any information she had. However, just as the girl was about to respond to Mokjin's question, Sunja suddenly exclaimed, "I've detected a life signal!" This declaration instantly captured everyone's attention. Sunja went on to reveal that the signal originated from a location near the main headquarters of Mount Hua, known as Jaha Pavilion. Upon hearing this, Robert, who had been frozen in shock at the prospect of someone being alive, recognized Jaha Pavilion as the residence of the leader of Mount Hua. Sunja reiterated that it was indeed a life signal emanating from a single person, but the signal was exceptionally strong. Observing Mua Rin bow her head, it appeared as though she held knowledge that she was ashamed to reveal at that moment. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting darkness over the surroundings, everyone except Sunja and Robert found themselves standing before the location where the life signal had been detected, the Jaha Pavilion. Just there, something drew Captain Seryung's attention as they approached the building. It was Robert, clad in heavy mechanical armor, evidently prepared for an all-out battle, vowing to seek vengeance against anyone who had harmed the civilians in his hometown. Seryung was taken aback by Robert's appearance in the old combat suit, as she had believed he had already sold it. Moving closer, they stood before the entrance of the building, resembling more of a dark tunnel than a conventional doorway. For the final time, the captain sought confirmation that they were indeed in the right location, and that the life signal was directly ahead of them. Sunja affirmed this, but also cautioned that the signal was growing stronger by the second, hinting that it might not be of human origin. Concerned for their safety, Seryung proposed sending an investigative drone ahead to assess the situation. However, Robert, impulsive as ever, disregarded the caution and charged into the tunnel, intent on taking matters into his own hands. Although Captain Se-ryung didn't fault him for his impetuous actions, she couldn't help but wonder why he was causing such a commotion recently. Despite her reservations, she decided to follow him inside, instructing Mokjin and Muarin to stay vigilant as they ventured into the unknown. As they approached the entrance of the tunnel, a sudden change caught Se-ryung's attention. The once dark passage began to illuminate. In a split second, a life-threatening situation unfolded before the group, catching them off guard. A massive burst of fire erupted with astonishing speed and silence, likely triggered by Robert's inadvertent noise or triggering a trap. The intense blaze subsided within moments, returning everything to normalcy. In the aftermath, Se-ryung and Muarin found themselves locked in a gaze, their faces mere inches apart, their chests pressed together. Frozen in place, they realized they were on the brink of an accidental kiss, their hearts racing with a mix of shock and surprise. Fortunately, it was the protagonist, Mokjin, who managed to save everyone except for Robert, all while remained oblivious to the awkward situation he had inadvertently caused for the girls in his arms. He stood there, his gaze unwavering, pondering the source of the sudden fire that had targeted them. Meanwhile, Se-ryung regained her composure and inquired of the boy if he had any insights into what had transpired. However, her question went unanswered as the boy abruptly rose to his feet, causing Se-ryung to stumble and fall down the stairs. It seems like he cares much more about Muarin's safety than Captain Se-ryung. As they resumed their journey, they found Robert still in a state of shock, guarding his face with his arms. None of them expressed much concern for his well-being, considering he had rushed headlong into danger by his own feet. Yet Captain Se-ryung approached him, calling out to him repeatedly, but received no response. She enlisted Sunja's help to confirm Robert's condition. To their surprise, Sunja reported that he was unharmed, thanks to the protective armor he wore. Despite this, Se-ryung couldn't fathom why he remained silent if he was indeed fine. Sunja humorously suggested that Robert may have been so frightened that he had an accident, causing him to stay silent. Disregarding Robert's peculiar behavior, Mokjin ventured a bit farther and halted in his tracks. In that moment, something caught his whole attention. Something like blazing star with purple color was coming towards him. Actually, it was something more like a plum blossom that hit the boy's head and disappeared into thin air. When the protagonist surveyed his surroundings, he found himself encircled by the fluttering blossoms, filling the room completely in every direction. Within moments, he identified the origin, a man seated upon a throne-like structure, emanating a distinctive white and purple aura alongside the blossoms. The man appeared to be either in a deep slumber or simply unconcerned with the visitors in his presence, coupled with his unique abilities, unsettled Mokjin. Once more, Se-ryung requested Sunja to confirm if this man was indeed the source of the life signal, and once more Sunja affirmed it. According to her, the man was none other than the leader of Mount Hua, renowned as the flourishing blossom sword sovereign, Yong Joksan. This revelation caught Se-ryung off guard, as she had not anticipated encountering such a renowned man in person. The protagonist clenched a blossom in his hand, inspecting it closely as he began to grasp the gravity of the situation. He marveled at the individual's proficiency in wielding the legendary martial arts technique. Mokjin understood the immense dedication and mastery required to manipulate the plum blossoms in such a manner, a skill honed over centuries of training. The fact that the blossoms were a vibrant shade of purple hinted at the mastery of an additional martial arts technique. However, for Muarin, the scene evoked a different response. Overwhelmed with emotion, she shed tears at the sight of her father in such a state. In a moment of vulnerability, she disclosed her identity as the daughter of Mount Hua's leader for the first time. Witnessing her father in this mysterious condition stirred deep concern within her.
As the energy ramps up, Captain Se-ryung turns to Mukjin, the power guy, and asks, "What's wrong? What's the problem?" Her tone makes it clear that she feels something's not right. The scene then shifts back to the meditating figure. Mokjin starts explaining the significance of the techniques being used. The plum blossom heavenly fragrance. Heart technique represents extreme yang, while the purple mist divine art embodies extreme yin. He reveals that these techniques are so powerful that even the elders of Mount Hua can only master one. If extreme yang and extreme yin mix, the combination of these opposing forces could lead to unpredictable and catastrophic consequences. When a martial artist's desires go beyond their limits, a demon takes root in their heart, and they're no longer human. The tension rises as the strong guy urges everyone to run, admitting that the fight ahead won't be easy and that he can't guarantee their safety. The girl, Hua Rin, calls out to the meditating figure, calling him her father, and runs toward him. Seryung desperately tries to stop her, shouting that going near him could end badly. But it's too late. The characters are already engulfed in a blinding clash of energies, hinting at the fierce battle and uncertain outcomes ahead. Lee Mukjin says it's too late to stop anyone now. Hua Rin has already reached her father, whose body is now surrounded by swirling, vibrant light. Meanwhile, Sanja, the ship pilot, watches from a distance with a fearful expression. She senses danger as Hua Rin moves closer to her father, marked by an ominous countdown ticking away. Hua Rin embraces the powerful energy source, her father. The story then zooms out to reveal a grand, glowing chamber where a lone figure sits on a throne, bathed in golden light. A gentle, reassuring touch hints at a complicated relationship filled with care and attention. Seryung doesn't understand what's happening, but then a voice is heard saying, "It's normal. The world has returned to normal." Sanja, the pilot, is just as confused about what the voice means. The countdown reaches 18, and Mount Hua suddenly comes alive. Streets that were empty before are now bustling with people, acting as if nothing unusual ever happened. Seryung watches in awe, while Mukjin stays calm for now. The place gets livelier, with lights shining everywhere. In a more peaceful setting, the characters relax after the intense events that had just unfolded. Seryung recalls how Sanja had told them earlier that there were no people around, but now the place is filled with them. She wonders if the bioscanner was malfunctioning, but Sanja reminds her that they both checked it together, and at that time, the scanner was definitely working normally. She adds that even now, the scanner is functioning normally, but something's still off. Everyone's internal energy has been completely drained, both children and adults alike. Robert, the glasses guy, feels like if everyone looks fine, then things must be okay. Earlier, they thought everyone was dead, but now they can see that they're alive, so for now, he just wants some food to satisfy his hunger. He asks the staff to take his order, requesting a double serving of noodles and a large special doner pork. He wanted to order more, but the server walks right past him, completely ignoring him. Robert's confused. Maybe she was just too busy to hear him. When she comes back, he tries again to place his order, but once again, she ignores him. Sanja points out that it's not that they didn't hear him. It's like they can't even see him. No one in the restaurant seems to notice them at all, as if they're invisible. Seryung doesn't want to get involved, sensing something's wrong. Then, we see someone pouring tea into a cup. It's the same guy who was surrounded by that strange aura earlier, but now he looks like just any ordinary grandpa. Even though there are guests right in front of him, Hua Rin says that he's not someone who would rudely drink his tea alone. It's just that he can't see them. She explains that he's been like this since she returned from her tour. The strange thing is, he still goes about his daily tasks normally, drinking tea, going for inspections, eating meals, tending to the garden, always at the exact same times every day, like a wind-up doll. Mukjin reaches out to the elder figure, who's seated calmly, trying to examine him out of curiosity. Hua Rin reiterates that it's no use since he just can't see them. Still, she asks Mukjin to be careful because if anyone prevents the elder from following his repetitive routine, which Mukjin just did, something bad will happen. Sadly, her warning comes a bit too late. Now, she just wants Mukjin to get out of the way as the elder's sword comes straight toward him to strike. Thankfully, Mukjin is the power boy, who's quite an expert at dodging stuff like this. But the redness in the air remains as the elder comes at him with his sword for another strike. Mukjin dodges again and again, no matter how quickly or how many times the strikes come. The elder doesn't appreciate this disrespect to his skills, so he powers up even more, causing that strange aura to start leaking out of him once again. Mukjin has had enough. Things are getting too dangerous. He decides to bring out his aura, and both of them clash their hands, creating an epic clash of auras that results in immense destructive power. Hua Rin is also nearby, and this could seriously hurt her if they're not careful. She shouts for them to stop, but among the smoke and dust, the purple aura is seen again, just like what they witnessed earlier, a reaction exhibiting both extreme yang and extreme yin together. Hua Rin shouts, asking for the teacup to be returned to her father because if it's not done, he'll rampage even more. Says that when surpassing an unreachable limit, the human body can't withstand it. If her father keeps this up, he'll fall into his inner demon, and his body will burst like a balloon, ending up in pieces. Being able to do this should clearly be an impossible realm, but the father's strange aura keeps rising. Those purple flowers also start showing up now. The human in front of them has turned into a being who is human, yet not human. Hua Rin again asks him to hurry up as things keep getting more and more dangerous. Just when she thinks it's too late to do anything, Mukjin throws the cup like he's pitching a baseball. The cup goes straight toward the dangerous aura. Anyone would think the aura would destroy the cup itself, but that doesn't happen. Instead, the whole flower starts disappearing from the point where the cup touched it. Hua Rin finally calms down as this is what she wanted. Her father grabs the cup, and his aura starts calming down once again. The dangerous vibes around also start fading away. The elder puts the cup back on his table, pours more tea into it, and everything returns to normal. Mukjin says nothing, and just watches silently